here is a question. How many of you are familiar with human performance technology? How many of you are performance technologies? How many of you within the last week try to mess up other people's behavior and try to change that behavior? Obviously not for your benefit, for the good of the other person. How many of you did that? If you did that, you are a human performance technologist and you can apply for your CPT.
So what's the big deal here? How many of you are practitioners, consider yourself practitioners? Yeah? Any students? We have some students. How about researchers? Anybody done research? Okay, well, we have lots of different hats in here. We also have a lot in common.
Really seen some huge positive impacts that performance technology has imparts on many different assets of the service. The efforts and innovations that many of you in the HPT community have quite fundamentally changed the way we do business in the Coast Guard. It's just been a huge change. The Coast Guard, and I see probably too many blue suiters, but a number of you obviously that aren't definitely with the service. As I go around, I find out probably there's not as many folks that know that much about the Coast Guard. We have 11 statutory missions. You've heard and seen many of them. It's search and rescue. We have on that kind of end of the spectrum, law enforcement, drug enforcement, defense operations. Duck scrubbers kind of on the other side. That's a happy term for us. Oil pollution cleanup. We do a lot of that. AIDS and navigation. Like I said, defense operations, ice breaking. Not a lot of ice, by the way, here in San Francisco. We're doing a really good job. Probably a better way, though, I think, rather than talk about too much about what we do, is I have my staff look at a couple different options. I said, you know, a lot of these people aren't going to know that much about the Coast Guard. Let's give them a little taste of it. So we came up with a couple different videos. There we go. Remember, this is the quiet one.
Semper Paratus, always ready. This is the motto of the United States Coast Guard, and it signifies how we perform every day. Saving lives, protecting natural resources, and guarding our nation's security is standard operating procedure for the U.S. Coast Guard. We are America's Maritime Guard.
We got stuff and Bob we need. Joe, you need to work down with Urban Guild because they're going to give you these people out here and we're going to run. Okay? So decisions made.
So the facilitation has to do with starting from the bottom with direct reports of Cal, Bob, and Alice, for example. And then that goes up to Max. Max has a meeting with Alice, Bob, Cal, and Fishbowl makes a set of decisions, and that's in Fishbowl.
Right. That's in the Fishbowl. So that they can see it if they want to. And by the way, they do. Most of them come to watch. Okay? They've never seen one of those secret executive meetings. We hear all kinds of funny things about him. Let's watch. Somebody's going to get killed, I've heard. Let's go see this. Right? It's gallows type entertainment. Right? And so, you know, I'm bringing out the dark side because you need to know it really is there. There's a really ugly dark side to organization. Okay? Don't be afraid of it. The human community's gotten along with this dark side for a long time. Okay? We just need to kind of shine a light on it. Okay? And if you open the door and turn on the light.
Of running a unique humanitarian mission in the Department of Defense. And that mission was to go out and to research, recover, return, and identify heroes from past conflicts who had been left behind. They could have been left behind as a prisoner of war and buried there. They could have been missing in action. Someone who got frightened in the fog of war was killed and then just buried in a ditch. So our job, it was a global one, to go out all over the world to find these wonderful heroes and return them to their sons, their daughters, their husbands, and the wives, and basically give you back your ancestors with a full honor arrival, as if your person that you loved had just died in the current conflict. And it meant so much. So I had the honor of meeting the people that we impacted, and also the honor of taking a full spectrum of staff, very, very young men and women who had served multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and this was their down tour. And what that means is you're away from your wife or your husband and your children for a year when you're in combat. When you come back to reconstitute yourself, one doesn't normally select a command where you're then deployed 50% of the time to very, very arduous places. So in the Navy, as I said, I started in Vietnam. When you start in a time of war, many people are deployed in combat. So therefore, if you are not a combatant individual, you are given a wide variety of functional areas you can go into. So I basically went into many different areas. So I had finished on the Joint Chiefs of Staff as the head of human resources, the most senior human resource, and Lean Six Sigma Green Belt for the Department of Defense. And I was given the honor of commanding JPAC. So I had the opportunity to fly out into just the most arduous places you can imagine, the places where our heroes died. And you would go for 32 hours of flight, and you'd fly in, and you'd keep flying, and then all of a sudden you'd be on helicopters, and you'd be flying from helo to helo to get out to these very primitive places. Again, it was an honor to do that, but it was a challenge. And as a CPT, I looked at the command, and if the commander spent all of their time traveling throughout the world, negotiating contracts, and doing all the speaking engagements that you could do, you would never be at home to be with the people that needed you to also look at their processes. So when I took over the command, the manning was very, very minimal. So the Central Identification Lab was in the 60% manning, and in the rest of the command it was 80%. There were people living in stairwells and in fire exits. They had their offices, and I'd go, "Why is your office at that doorway?" And they'd say, "Well, it's the only place I can find, and it's got a window." And I'd say, "No, this is a safety issue. You can't have somebody's desk in front of a fire exit." So it sort of gives you, the feeling, leaky roofs, hardworking, wonderful people, and all they cared about was the mission. They really didn't care about their quality of life. So what I've done for today's presentation is just to go over the 10 steps that we use as a daily way of living, and show you how as a Chief Executive Officer, I use them with this wonderful command to create a CPT environment. So the first was focus on results.
We get a lot of good work done. I'm so happy to be here. For the first time in 8 years, I feel normal. I'm talking to people who use the same language. I don't have to translate it. I don't have to apologize for it. And it has been the most wonderful conference, being here among people who have a lot to share, who are willing to share their tools and their ideas. And I don't think I've ever, we put on a ton of conferences. I don't think I've ever been to one with this quality, consistent content. Would you agree? It's absolutely fabulous.
And you remember from the first night when I had this torch? Here it is. Now it's time to pass the torch. So Mickey Lane, come on up. He's the president-elect right now for one more minute, and he's going to be the president in the next minute. So, Vicki, you need 2 hands. Because I'm going to give you a plaque. And the reason they get plaques is they can put them on their wall to convince everyone I'm so busy, and it's the reason I'm so busy is because I'm the president. See that? And so that explains everything, doesn't it?
And lo and behold, I am going to get another plaque. This is the presidential plaque, which is going to Darlene. Now, as we pass over from Darlene's board to my board, I hope you will understand that last year, that particular board, Darlene's board, worked through a lot of interesting and difficult problems for ISPI. And I applaud the work that they did. There's so much work that they did for the society, and they really got us through some difficult times, and it's greatly, greatly appreciated. And I think that Darlene and her team deserve an ISPI thank you from you. That Darlene stays on the board as past president, so I get the knowledge and the skills that Darlene brought to this year's board to help me with next year's board as well. But right now, I'd like to call on, oh, I love that picture. Don't you like that picture? I'll be signing copies for that outside for you if you like. Our new board. The new board is Judy Hale, who's coming in as president-elect. Come on up, Judy. A person who you've seen up on this stage quite a bit over the past several days, Lisa Conades. Dawn Papilia, who's going to be coming up for a brand new board member. Dawn. And continuing is Carolyn Judge. And Paul Cook. Come on up, Paul. And unfortunately, Louise Schneider, who is in Germany, couldn't get here because of that infamous volcano. So she's also a brand new board member as well. And you can see Darlene's there, and of course, April Davis is also on the board as executive director. That's the April here. And there are special, everyone take their plaques already? All right, no, you've had enough. No more plaques. The budget has been broken for the plaques, okay? Anyway. That is your new board for next year, ISPI board. Okay. Is it on now? Oh, that's cool. Thanks for the magic out there. All right. I am so pleased to be the incoming president. I understand that from everybody who's spoken, why are you doing this? It's a daunting job, but it is a challenge, and I am looking forward to it. And one of the things that we're going to see next year is we have our conference, which is going to be in Orlando, and the conference chair is going to be Rod Rod. And he's not here. He was here for a couple of days, but he went back. He is on the board of directors for the community college there. So we are slowly but surely, Deb, moving into a K through 12 focus here, okay? And one of things that we're going to be looking at next year's conference is some new ideas, some different ways of looking at things. So if we can get that up there, yeah. Right now, and we're in a state of flux a little bit. We haven't put full thinking caps on this. We've got a board meeting tomorrow, and we're going to be working on things, but we feel that we want to get to the research areas and get back to research. So the theme of the conference next year is going to be evidence-based practices. And we're going to be listening to our research team. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do a full-day research symposium where we're going to get people coming in and talking about the actual research and what we can get out of it as practitioners. Another element, we're going to have more invited speakers to the session to really focus in on what's new, what's exciting, and what is important for our society that we can bring forth for the conference itself. And there's also going to be the concept of a conference within a conference. So everybody's going to go to the keynotes and the master speakers, but we may have certain groups that are going to go through the conference by themselves to get specialized information. It may be, for example, right now we've got a newcomers track and we've got newcomer sessions, but we may have a newcomer, a whole track of newcomer sessions that we'll go for, and Judy and I have to talk about this, maybe get some extra certification for that. There may be a K through 12 track. So we're looking at ways that we can improve and get more involvement in the society, and there are going to be some new things that we're going to see at the Orlando conference. But one thing, and before I forget this, the conference committee has asked me to remind you about the World Cafe elements that you've done and participated, and we thank you for that participation. They're putting all of that information together, and you're going to see that shortly in one or two of the publications, so that information is